I've got Mr. J.D. Walker, Mr. Kyle Krieger, and then down below, I got Obi Spencer and also Brandon Kay. As I mentioned before, this is the Sports Den. So in this case here, we got a lot of stuff we're going to be covering today. We're going to be talking about NFL Wildcard Weekend. We're going to be talking about Seton Hall just laying the gamut down on Butler over the weekend. Got a bunch of other stuff we're going to talk about. I got some ranting that I got to do a little bit when it comes to the NFL. And other than that, gentlemen, how you doing?
Frustrated.
Doing
You know what?
I'm a little disappointed.
I'm going to say this immediately. Why are you disappointed, sir?
You don't have a football game to watch this weekend. You should be happy.
I was looking for I was looking for my son's Naruto headband and was going to request a special introduction, but I could not find it in honor of Jamal Williams. But things went awry.
That would have been cool. So,
yeah, my kids have a new favorite football player. I mean,
and in this case, it's anime related, which is suddenly mainstream. So odd. 30 years ago, when I got into anime back in like 1992, I used to get beaten up for that. So I love the fact that it's so mainstream right now. That's actually cool.
Oh, it is.
Brandon,
most of the geeky stuff we got beaten up for is popular now.
Yeah, so ahead of the curve. I feel such a trendsetter sometimes. Anyway, Brandon, why are you pissed off?
Well, because my football team continues to be my football team, and my basketball team got hosed on a call last night. But they're still struggling, barely over 500, barely heads above water, but still a bit of season ahead of us. So just a little down in the dumps today. One of those blue Mondays on a black Monday.
Yeah, well, Black Monday in this case, obviously the fact that a lot of head coaches are now out of a job. Lovie Smith has gone after 1 year. I mean, what do you expect? It's the Houston Texans were never really going to be much of anything this season. But are you surprised that he got the axe?
After last night's game, no, because in a game that basically the front office probably told him to lose, he went out and won. So you know what? Kudos to him. Going out on a win. And a big spit in the face to the ownership, which is never anything wrong with that.
Well, if you knew he was,
I'm not surprised, and I don't want to tread here, but we did hear at the beginning of the season when they were talking about the black coaches and African American coaches situation that they were hired to lose on bad teams and then get fired for the rebuild, and to watch for Lovie Smith to get fired after one season. It was one of the things in the conversation, and it came to pass. So, unfortunately, I'm not too surprised because it was kind of predicted.
I think he was done. He was toast either way. They never wanted to hire him in the first place. Like they were going to, because there was a lot of chatter that they were going to hire Josh McCown, who at the time, who before Jeff Saturday entered the chat, was talked about as would be a hilariously unqualified to be an NFL head coach. Mm-hmm. Then the Brian Flores lawsuit and all hit, and they brought in Lovie Smith a year after they fired David Culley for the same thing. Mm-hmm. It's a roster devoid of really any talent aside from a few promising defensive pieces. They were clearly trying to tank for the number one pick and then lost yesterday, but also there's no Trevor Lawrence or Andrew Luck out there. So they're probably okay either way. Although if it comes down to quarterbacks, as in this year, it's Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud. Usually the one that goes number two stinks. Sometimes they both stink, as the Jets have gotten two of those busts recently. So Lovie Smith was in a no-win situation either way.
I think in this case, you're probably right. He probably was, SOL right from the onset. But it's something that the Houston Texans are a lost team right now. Obviously, in the fact that, the trade they had in the offseason was a good trade there. dropping basically getting 4 draft picks, I think it was, for Deshaun Watson. That kind of thing can set up a good future if you do it right. But in this case, he probably knew he was on his way out. He probably hated that entire scenario because losing sucks. And he probably knew being on his way out. He's like, you know what? I'm going to take it to ownership. I'm going to win this game. I'm going out either way. I may as well go out with 1 win and my head held somewhat high.
It's also players performing for their jobs. It's easy for us
True.
as fans to say, oh, tank for the future. And usually when you screw up a tank, it can set a franchise back years. Look at the Jets once again. But these are people's jobs on the line, both coaches and players. So they have, so it's really, for fans to ask people to put their jobs on the line for a future that will probably not involve most of the players and coaches on the field now, it's a hard ask, and it's it isn't really fair to either side. When an organization like the Texans or the Jets or the Browns or the Cardinals that are consistently in this situation year in and year out.
Yeah, Cardinals are out of head coach too. I think they fired their own, right? So.
Yeah, I didn't hear if anybody else has been axed since Kingsbury, today. So, are there any more? I haven't seen.
Not that I've seen.
Well, I think the over/under was like what, 4?
Yeah, you guys had the over/under at 4. It ended at 2 in this case. The Texans and the Cardinals are looking for new people.
I mean, we did have 3 already fired during the regular season.
Yeah.
Jeff Saturday should join them, although
He won't.
Given how Jim Irsay is going further and further off the rails, I would not be surprised if they brought him back another year.
Now, talking about Arizona for a split second here, they've obviously got the contract that they've got right there. The expectations are there, and frankly, what is a borderline not difficult division, but a difficult one just the same. Do you think you deserve the axe over there? Or is it one of those things where you're expected that the team is going to, just crush it with Ella contracts and the talent that they have? I mean, you look at Zach Ertz, who, where he went, his previous team right now is top in the league.
Yeah. Well, in regards to the Eagles, you had Ertz and also Goddard. Goddard.
That was Goddard.
Goddard. It was known as a 2-headed monster for their tight end. So when he left, well, okay, you had someone who could pick up the slack. So
you're seeing similar with Tyreek Hill in Miami.
Yes.
Yeah. Kansas City let him go. They did not miss a beat on that.
Nope. Because they knew they had the depth. Sometimes that doesn't work out, but when it does, that's what you build. That's why you build a team with depth, so you can do that.
Now,
Zach Ertz.
Let me say, well, I was going to say with this going back to the Lovie Smith thing. Should he? I don't even know if that's really a legitimate question at this point. At what point does the league sit down and look at this Houston Texans organization and be like, damn, like we might need to do something? Because I sit here
after
just every day
handled.
As a Jets fan, Scott, you a Giants fan, Obi, Eagles fan, even though you have nothing to be complaining about as an Eagles fan. But we sit here and when our teams are underperforming to such a rock bottom level, we can still sit here and say, well, at least we're not the Texans. And for them to have year after year, years ago, they're both gone in J.J. Watt and D-Hop, who for a long stretch, I thought Hopkins was the best receiver in football. Okay? And for that organization to have in their prime arguably the best receiver and arguably the best defensive pass rusher or defensive player in the game, and to not do anything year after year, regardless of the coach, it's absurd. And
not just that,
not even like a rivalry standpoint, but I just hate this team for just.
Here's the other problem that exists here, and I think only, like, for example, New Jersey Devils fans are going to get this. The Houston Texans are perennially in the shadow of the Dallas Cowboys, America's team, who are going to the playoffs this year, who have a playoff match against Tampa Bay on Monday. Meanwhile, you have Texans fans there who are struggling year in and year out, watching their team, staying loyal, completely, even on good years, habitually in the shadow of a much more societally popular team.
Mets.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I think it's worse than the Mets.
I think it's definitely
is.
worse than that. It is like the Devils when they sucked. The Rangers were on high, and it's the same kind of thing, but on an NFL level. So as a result, it's what I just talked about: Devils Rangers times like 3, because it's the Cowboys are one of the most popular teams in the world. Forget NFL and the U.S. In the world, it is a known team. That star, that blue star, is known nationwide. So you have a team like the Houston Texans, who in this case go, I think, 3-13-1. Or 3-14, whatever. 3-13-1.
3-13-1. Yep.
Yeah. And as a result, they have a brutal season. They look bad. They are in a city that just won the World Series. So there is a degree of expectation there as well. So this is a team that honestly is in the shadow of a much better team and a much more popular team. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of when the LA Clippers sucked for all those years. And then you had
the only
that's a much better example.
That's
and the
really
Clippers
the
are like,
only
we're
comp.
here too.
Yeah, I would look. I'm going to go back to Arizona, because I think the bigger thing about Houston is that, yes, they have all those problems, but they are also a poorly run franchise. We see it with coaching selection. We see it with player selection. The group of studs that they traded got nothing back for.
And that's not even mentioning having Watson for those years as a top quarterback.
Yeah.
So
they got a good trade for Watson. They looked good for that trade too.
Yeah, I mean,
Arizona, on the other hand, I think that is a horrific job. Like, the problem for Arizona is they fired Cliff Kingsbury, and they're not going to get look, there's going to be a Sean Payton sweepstakes. I don't know if he's coming back or not, but Arizona calls him. He's going to hang up because you have a quarterback with a crappy reputation. You have receivers. Your best receiver is old. Your defense is, your best player leaving that defense in terms of Watt again. And I don't know who's going to pick up that phone. Yeah, so Arizona's in trouble. I would have kept Kingsbury, because why not? You signed up the money for Mighty Mouse. These are the two guys who are supposed to do it, Mighty Mouse and Kingsbury. I think I would have kept them because there's just nothing else there. And, Mighty Mouse was injured again at the end of the season, so of course they stay.
But you always fire the coach or the manager first. You can't fire the players, and that's how this works every single time.
Yeah.
Yep. The coach is the ball guy.
You fire the coach not because you think you're going to hire a better coach. The truth of the matter is you fire your coach because you feel like your fan base wants it, and if you fire him and get a sexy hire, you'll keep your
Somebody needs to take responsibility. Somebody needs to.
You know what?
It's not even that, though. I don't think it's responsibility. I think if this was a true, if this was a business that wasn't so what do the fans want based, they would go, okay, we can keep these people and whatever. But because the fans see the new coach and it goes, okay, they're doing something, gonna buy season tickets, even though it may not be even close to the best thing for the team. And whether it's this particular situation or many of the other sports teams, manager, coach gets fired just so the fans go, like you said, we can't get rid of the players. Yes, we have a chance. Get me my season tickets.
Mm-hmm.
This fire as opposed to the other ones so far feel like you sold your house, but you haven't bought one yet. So you have nowhere to go now. You fired a coach and you seem to have no idea, no inclination of where you were going to go with the head coach, whether it's going to be a rookie head coach, a veteran head coach. And first off, New Orleans would have to trade Sean Payton. Sean Payton is under contract. There is not a chance. There's not a snowball's chance in hell that New Orleans is trading Sean Payton to the Arizona Cardinals. That's
Brandon. Question for Brandon and JD. If Robert Saleh is out of a job, would you take either one of those coaches available?
Would I take Sean Payton?
No. Would you take Cliff Kingsbury or Lovie Smith?
No way.
No.
Just don't.
No, because I think
Smith.
No,
No,
Salah.
he doesn't have a ring, I
You see
believe.
what you
Smith-
forgetting?
Smith
Forget
had one
X's.
good season and has been coasting on that for years. He was a failure in the NFL and in college.
Yeah, and forget X's and O's. At least Salah has a culture that he can set. What culture does Lovie Smith set, regardless of where he is? What culture did Kingsbury set in Arizona? I mean, what, laid back frat party? I mean, what the Cardinals should have done, instead of fire Kingsbury, they should have just canceled Kyler Murray's Xbox Live, and then they really would have saved themselves a lot of trouble.
Increase the number of hours he's forced to study.
Oh my God.
Both teams also need to fire their general manager. And for the common thread of every single team that we've mentioned, Washington, the Jets, Arizona, Houston, all of these perennially awful franchises, even the Mets, the Clippers, all of those second fiddle teams, there's one common thread for this kind of generational ineptitude. And it starts at the top with terrible ownership for all of these teams.
Yep.
Not anymore.
Unfortunately,
the Bidwell family in Arizona has been terrible for 3 generations of Bidwell owners. You have the McNairs in Houston. Now you have I keep mixing up which is which, Bob or Cal. I think Cal is the owner now after the father's passing.
Yes.
And he's clueless.
And they're all morally corrupt.
Washington is a dumpster
Oh, yeah.
fire. You're talking about league involvement. If the league isn't getting involved or doing anything of substance with somebody with the disaster in Washington, which has gotten congressional investigation, then they're not going to do a darn thing about Houston.
Yeah, it's the same thing it's the same thing in all leagues, really. It doesn't matter if the only time they ever do anything with the owners is if it really is a black mark on the commissioner itself, on the commissioner themselves, or if it really goes above and beyond, like you said, congressional investigations, and now they're finally just barely looking into it, and every time they look into it, hey, look, something else horrible pops up. But it took how much, as you said, just to get Washington investigated, and now they're finally supposedly doing something about it. Yeah, it's the same thing like in all leagues. How long did it take for Major League Baseball to remove Jeffrey Loria? Or how long did it take for NFL?
The courts in LA.
The
bigger the change, the slower the process.
Yeah, but they got rid of Sterling in the NBA, and they're getting rid of the Phoenix owner real quick in the NBA. The NBA is a different animal when it comes to its owners. But remember, there's 11, 12 players on a team, 30 franchises. 300, 400 people play in the NBA. Those players have significantly more power, and they're moving into ownership ranks quicker. So, but other than the NBA, the NFL and the MLB, they take their time because the commissioner's not in charge. She's a mouthpiece.
Yep. And so it requires the other owners to vote on it. Exactly. And if, say, like the big beacon of negativity gets removed, it puts them in more of a light and makes all the stuff that they're doing. It'll reveal the stuff that they're doing, because now, they don't have the beacon of attention anymore. So the attention's going to be going to them instead. So they're basically covering for the worst of the lot.
All of these commissioners are paid a ton of money for one thing, and actually only two things: to make them money and to take attention off of them. Everybody is talking about Goodell, Manfred, Gary Bettman, Adam Silver, and that's exactly what they're for. They are the patsies. They are the shield for the 30 or 32 billionaire cabal of people who are mostly less than savory for one reason or another, or just downright incompetent. So that is exactly what the commissioner's job is. Any of the stuff about commissioner working in the best interest of the sport, like Kennesaw Mountain Landis, that ship sailed decades ago. Obi,
Obi,
go ahead.
I would like to defend incompetent owners. Because again, if they're incompetent maybe in winning, but are they incompetent in making money with the franchise? So
No.
that's another thing, because you can't tell we can all go up and down and pick owners who can't figure out how to win, who are making money in all the sports.
Figure out.
Yeah,
Yes.
who don't choose to win,
There you go.
and therefore they become bad owners, bad franchises, but they're making money. So it's hard. It's hard for the commissioner, like you said, for who these are the 30, 35 people, depending upon the league, who that person works for, to go and say, you're not fielding a competitive product. And the guy goes, yeah, but you just keep getting us the TV deals because I'm making money in my pocket.
Yeah,
and then the owner of another team in the same conference goes, yeah, and I'd like to win a championship, so I'll take this schmo playing garbage. I'll take Cleveland. I'm trying to win here in Baltimore. I'll take Cleveland playing like garbage year in and year out. I'm in Pittsburgh. I only want to win.
From a PR standpoint, you're still like, I'm bringing up a competitive product to the field.
Right.
The Eagles and the Giants are the biggest supporter of the mess in Washington.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cowboys too, I think, to a degree. Now let me ask you guys something. This is something I've been curious about. I want to get your take on it a little bit. I may have to switch the cameras a little bit here on this, how this is going to work. But this is, there we go. Let's do it that way. This is the NFC standings right here. I think you'll agree with this. You got the Eagles, the 49ers, the Vikes, the Bucks, Cowboys, Giants, and Seahawks. Now, if you look at the bottom of that, if you can see it okay, you have the Lions, the Washington football team, and the Packers at 9-8, 8-1, and 8-9. All three of those teams statistically had a better record than the Bucks. Packers beat the Bucks in week 2 or week 3. That's why I'm bringing that up. In this case, you have a team with a losing record that is a 4th seed, and you have 3 teams that did better in that season that are missing the playoffs. My question to you guys, and what I want to get your take on with something like this, is if this continues under the new 17-game schedule, how long do you think it's going to be before people start arguing for, say, a 3 or heck, even 5 division conference?
Well, getting more divisions just makes it worse. That's why we keep getting these losing records.
My thought on this is I don't mind you win your division with a losing record, you get in. I really don't.
Okay.
What I mind is not reseeding. You get in and then you treat it like the NBA. I think, and Brandon will correct me if I'm wrong, you win your division, you're in the NBA, but you don't get the 1, 2, 3 seeds. It then goes by record. So if a situation like this, I think Tampa falls from the 3rd seed or 4th seed to the 7th seed, and all of a sudden they're playing in Dallas instead of Dallas at them. And if we ever get to our predictions today, there's a reason I'm taking Tampa, Tom, in Tampa.
Right up front, same. But like I said, in this case here, you have 3 teams that did better than Tampa. You have the Lions, who had a good rebound season after last year. Goff has started to get situated right there. Their defense was bad. Their offense was solid. Credit even to Washington in this case, going 8-1. Tampa, okay, fine. I'm okay with the fact that the division winner won this thing. But in this case, if this kind of thing continues and you get a team that goes 10-7, hell, 11-6, and they miss the playoffs, while an 8-9 team, which very easily that could have actually been 7-10 winning that division. If you have that, how long before do you think people start to bitch about this and want change and insist on change?
It changes year in, year out. So it's like, this might happen every couple years where there's one person that pops in with a bad record or even like a 500 record.
It almost happened in the AFC too, if the Titans had hung on to that win.
Oh, absolutely. But the thing is, that's the nature of divisions. So if anything, they should shrink the number of divisions, and then you won't be having this issue. But as Obi said, reseeding is absolutely needed. Is that how it's done with the NHL as well?
Well, the NHL actually did have this problem, and they solved it.
Tampa Bay, actually, ironically, back in the day.
Right. They solved this problem with fewer divisions.
Mhm.
They went from when they expanded from 30 to 31 and then most recently 32, they
Mhm.
went from 6 divisions of 5 like the NBA has to 4 divisions of 8 because there was always because of the Southeast division was terrible, and it was usually and they had the same problem where whoever won the Southeast division would get the 3 seed, yet the
Right, of
7 or 8
course.
seed would have a better record. Yet if you seeded them with everybody else, they would probably be more like 7th.
Mhm.
So that's how they solved this. The problem is with the NFL schedule and only having a limited number of games to go around. Going with say 4 divisions of 8 doesn't
Mhm.
really work in the NFL. The NFL is trying to get more crossover between divisions and conferences, not less. So I don't think that realigning into fewer divisions, especially at 32 teams, is really feasible. So I'm 100% with Obi. Tampa can get in the playoffs, fine. Heck, you can just, they should not be hosting the playoff game. This has been happening for years as well, because we had you had the Seahawks with a 7-9 record a few years ago. I think Carolina
That was
had
the
a losing
Marshawn Lynch
record.
game.
The Marshawn Lynch beast mode game. And so and just like that game, like that team, I also agree that I think Tampa beats Dallas playing at home, partly because history is on the side for both teams. Dallas face planting in the playoffs every year, and then you have and then Voldemort does his thing every year. He's been doing it for over 20 years. So why stop now? Also, he's been playing better lately. It's starting to remind me, although the
He is.
talent level is way different, it kind of reminds me of Bartolo Colon at the end of his career,
Mm.
where he would
Bartolo has done it. The impossible has. I'm sorry.
right. Although wildly different body types and workout programs, and Tom has one, but
Bartolo's on that TB12
He's
now.
got that movie with Lily Tomlin, Jane Fonda, and Sally Field coming out. You've seen the commercials for that now. What, 80 for
Right,
80 for Brady?
But Cologne at what 43, 44 years old that he was with the Mets was still effective. Not every time, but he still got it done. And Voldemort, I give credit where credit's due for Voldemort. It looks like it's happening again. And
I think it's very simple because this doesn't happen every single year that we have this type of a situation. So it either comes down to you just accept that it happens every so often and it happens to be whatever, or it's realigned, because if you have the reseeding, it doesn't matter if an under 500 team gets in. Like you can't have it both ways is what I'm trying to say. You can't like the fact that division winners host the game, but then if an under 500 or 500 team wins the division, they host. You can't change it. So it's either you like it the way it is and you keep it, or you're proponent of the reseeding based on the record, and then it doesn't matter if a 500 team or under 500 team wins the division because they're not hosting a playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think this really forwards itself to a lot of like overthinking or overanalyzing. I think it's the one option or the other option, and that's it. And we currently have the one option, so we deal with it.
Now, in this case, I figure basically we should give our predictions. I'd like to keep it simple in this case. Just basically, I'm going to go through each game, one word answer, which team, no points, nothing fancy, nothing detailed on this. We're going to start in this case. I guess we'll go, like I said, top left, all the way to the right, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday. Any objections to that, gentlemen? Nope. Cool. Brandon, you go first, sir.
So I'm going through each game, right?
No, we're just going to start with basically. We're going to do with Seattle and San Francisco. Each one of us is going to go through.
Yeah, so we'll do a game at a time.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So for you, San Francisco or Seattle?
I will be taking the 49ers.
Same here, JD.
Yep.
San Francisco.
Okay, Obi.
San Francisco.
Okay, Kyle.
You know what? I'm going to be the contrarian. I'll go Seattle.
All right. One of this is going to get bragging rights on this. Someone's going to get bragging rights on this anyway. All right. The late night game on Saturday night. We got the Chargers visiting the Jaguars, who pulled off, honestly, a very surprising, I think, come from behind win the other night. Credit to, I think, Trevor Lawrence here. Brandon, actually, you know what? Better yet, Kyle. Let me start that way and go back in reverse. What do you think?
Jacksonville.
Okay. Ob?
T-Law in Jacksonville.
I'm sticking with Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars.
Okay. I'm going to go Chargers on this one, I think. I don't think Jacksonville is ready for playoff time yet, so no. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
I am also by like really it's such a toss up. But I'm going to have to lean Jacksonville. I like Jacksonville's coaching with their roster more than I like the Chargers coaching in pairing with their roster. So, and then at home in Jacksonville, I think they're going to be beyond hyped down there to host a playoff game. I don't know if it would be almost as intense the other way around if the Chargers were hosting. So I'm taking Jacksonville.
So for the first two, we had 4 in one direction, 1 in the other. All right. Now, in this case, this is going to be a bit of a struggle for 2 of you guys here. Miami and Buffalo. 2 of you guys are Jets fans. Brandon?
I'm going to take Buffalo. I think in regards to what has happened, I think they have some type of almost like that baseball destiny. I think something might have just sprinkled over that team. And I'll take Buffalo in that game.
I don't feel the destiny, but I do agree with you on this. I think Buffalo is the stronger team. I think they got the more passion in this case. So, and DeMar Hamlin obviously unifying them. Yeah, Buffalo, same. JD?
Buffalo, destiny, and no Tua, no chance for Miami.
That's also
and Tyreek was questionable too. So,
I would gladly call you on Sunday when I know if Tua is starting. Because I would take them with Tua starting. I would take Miami. But without Miami knowing Tua's status as of right now, I will go with Buffalo.
Okay, so basically, if I got this right, you're gonna say Buffalo, but if Tua starts, you're gonna say Miami.
Correct. That
All
is
right. We can hold on that. I'm willing to hold that for now. If you guys have any objections, and see what happens.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Kyle, how about you, sir?
Buffalo.
All right.
So as mentioned, no Tua, no chance, and they got something to play for, and they are easily one of they have a top seed. They're definitely one of the best teams. So as good as Miami has been throughout the season, injuries have ramped up, and Buffalo they are going to be playing with a purpose. So
True.
I'm going Buffalo.
And at home too.
Exactly.
Which is something that if the weather is really crummy, could aid them as well.
They'll do better. Absolutely.
Okay. Weather won't affect this next one because it's indoor, but Giants and the Vikings on this one. Kyle, we'll start with you.
I would rather have the Giants win, but I think this one is probably one of the bigger toss-ups of this round of the playoffs. Absolutely. Because if I pick the Giants, I know Minnesota's going to win, but I think they are the better team. So if Minnesota wins, I think it will be a slight upset, but it is a bit of a coin toss. But so you know what, I'll be a homer. I'll go Giants.
All right, cool. Ob?
Well, I was here to try to make your day and be the first person to pick the Giants, but the fire was stolen from me. The Giants.
All right. JD?
I'm going to go Vikings on this one, mainly because Minnesota has a little bit of playoff experience, but this is the Giants' first time back in a while. So
it's okay.
And my team has the longest drought in the league.
Yet
We still have more playoff wins than Dallas over the last 25 years.
Which is hilarious in its own right, yeah. Yeah, I have to go Giants in this case here. They narrowly lost against Minnesota back on Christmas Eve. It took a 61-yard field goal to lose that game. They made a couple of mistakes, but I think they'll be smarter this time around, and they know that they can take a team like this, knowing what they did in Minnesota 3 weeks ago. So yes, I will go Giants as well. Brandon, how about you?
Again, this is a very a toss-up out of this group of games. I'm probably also gonna go with the New York Bills. I mean Giants. I don't know. I think this Vikings team is the definition of walking on eggshells, walking on a tightrope where the smallest gust of wind, it's gonna crumble. I don't know. This team has been so. Yes, they've been winning, but they have a negative point differential, which I don't even get how that makes sense. I mean, I do because they lose, it's terrible. When they win, they barely win. I'm gonna take the Giants.
Funny you should mention that though. When it comes to the NFL playoffs, there is almost always one team that you don't expect to go on just a ridiculous run. That could be the Vikings.
I don't know.
It's one of those teams.
The Vikings are a B-level team. I mean, even a lot of the pundits did not even expect them to make the playoffs.
Oh yeah, they're definitely B-level, but those are the ones that usually surprise you.
Fair.
I just think the idea of having Kirk Cousins on a standalone middle of the afternoon Sunday playoff game.
Yeah.
I think those teams that usually surprise you, you have a sense of them rolling into the playoffs. The playoffs are coming like the Jaguars, and they're we are coming. I mean, the classic, of course, is the Giants. Both years that they won under Manning. Yes, one year they lost to New England, but the whole point was they came in, they gave New England the best fight they could give them, and from that they propelled themselves. And the other year, I think they were, had 2 must-win games and got in and whatever, and they were
the Victor Cruz touchdown that sank the Jets.
Yeah.
And the Jets still haven't recovered.
Not that Minnesota can't get rolling, but that story usually requires that regular season.
If I remember correctly, the Giants, didn't they lose week 17 against the Patriots the first Super Bowl year?
They did. I was comparing it to Rocky versus Apollo. Rocky 1, Rocky 2.
Yeah.
They had just lost to the Patriots, and then 5 weeks later, basically, to beat them in the Super Bowl.
Right, and they played the Patriots. They didn't have to. They played the Patriots to try to break the streak. They didn't have to. They lost, and then they won when it counted.
And yesterday, the Vikings had to play. They started that roster because that was a must-win. The Giants, I mean, they started Davis Webb.
Yeah.
I mean, who cares?
No, the Giants, and it was funny because they asked Coughlin, what you do? Coughlin said it's 12 years later. It's a different league, and player safe. It's a different league. It's an extra game. I don't know what I would have done if I was in that position this year as opposed to what I did when I did it myself.
Fair. All right, we got 2 left here. One of them's going to be tough, though. This next one I think is going to be really tough, but Brandon, unfortunately, you have to start this off.
With Cincy Baltimore?
Yeah.
With Lamar's health really up in the air, basically as up in the air as a Raven, I'm going to take the home team Bengals. I think Joey B and that team, again, is on a little bit of a streak going into the playoffs. And I think they are just a better team.
I think you're probably right. I mean, if in this case here, they're playing at home, with Burrow and everybody that they've got on this squad, this is a team that is excited. They see the future. They saw what happened last year. They knew how close they got. And I think that is going to be an excited, passionate Cincy crowd. I think Baltimore's going to lose this one. I think Cincy takes it as well. JD?
I'm going to go contrarian here. And also, so I don't go all chalk, I'll go with I'm going to go with the Ravens here. Just something, I don't really know why. But, with Lamar's health and all of the other factors, as you said, just there's always one, wait, huh? How did this team win as we were just mentioning?
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be Lamar just coming back and just slinging it. And they also they just played this week.
Mm-hmm.
So Cincinnati just waxed them yesterday, I don't think that beating any team 2 weeks in a row is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't. So I don't really know why. I just have a hunch. I think Baltimore might take it.
Okay, fair. Well, listen, if you're right, you get bragging rights so far. So, Obi,
This is to me the easiest game. So it's funny you said it was hard. I have complete and utter faith in Joe Burrow. I think he is the cat's meow. And I think that this team is going to trample this game. I don't even know what the coin flip said about where they play Buffalo next week. They're going to crush Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to head to Kansas City, and they're going to knock out Kansas City, and then they're going to lose to the Eagles. That is how I see this.
Well, it looks like you don't have to do any
your
predictions
Eagles.
the rest of this
Clarify a little bit
postseason.
here.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Lose to my Eagles. Now, if my Eagles accidentally lose somewhere along the way, then I'll take Joe Burrow all the way. But yeah.
Somehow the Eagles will lose in the bye week.
Jalen Hurts is going to re-sprain his shoulder this week.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Kyle, how about you?
wow!
sir?
I offended JD.
I really did.
You broke his stream. Hello.
All right.
So this is the one that has upset alert depending on if Jackson plays.
Mhm.
If Jackson plays, I could definitely see Baltimore pulling off an upset. But if he doesn't play or if he rushes himself back and is very limited, since he should have this one, as we saw last week, yes, it may be difficult to beat a team twice in a row, but Cincinnati didn't really struggle at all during that match, especially with a hurt Jackson. So if Jackson's back, yes, upset. But otherwise, I'm going with Cincy.
Fair.
So obviously, I'm going to let that go because I did the Tua thing. But one of the things I want to point out is the big difference between Tua and Jackson. If I'm Baltimore and Jackson, the doctors give Jackson the go-ahead, we're putting him in because if he gets hurt and he's out, well, he's a free agent. We let him go.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm Miami and the doctors give Tua the go-ahead and there's any sort of sense of they might be a little more like this. Well, we got him locked up next year. Let's go long term. So I think that's an important difference in that quarterback decision. If you're Baltimore, you're all in because even if you keep him, he's now going to cost a ton of money. And Miami's got at least one more year of lower cost Tua.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like in the comments we got ourselves a bold prediction.
Birds and Bills.
Really quickly though, with this Baltimore Cincy thing,
go Birds.
I bringing up the fact that they literally just played.
Brandon did say Destiny on this side, by the way. I just want to point that out.
Literally just play each other this week. I almost look at this game as almost an extended overtime in terms of you had this team and you're immediately continuing to study this team. You get that week of health. There's no bye week. There's no extended rest. You come right back next week and you almost like continue the game. So I feel like that way, really with the streak, I'm going to take Cincinnati.
Okay. So, all right, we got one more here. Monday night, which again, I don't really like the fact that they're playing Monday Night Playoff. I'm aware of the fact that it's a rating draw. I'm aware of the fact that there's money involved, but I don't like the lack of rest come playoff time in a one-game only finale like this. So I do have issues on that front. I'm wasting my breath even bothering with that because it's the new future. I just have to accept it. But Kyle, you are rounding out Monday night and rounding out the predictions. What do you say, sir?
Well, logic would say Dallas, but we do have playoff Tom Brady. But remember last year, playoff Tom Brady didn't show up. And this whole season, he's been having a very difficult time. So, honestly...
Me, Vikings, by the way.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to that in a sec.
Indeed. Yeah, I'm... Giants and Minnesota was a toss-up. This is another toss-up, depending on which Tom Brady shows up. But logic will go with logic goes with Dallas. Though I know if my brother's listening in, he's full on Tampa Bay. But kid's been a Buck fan throughout as long as I've known him.
Respect. Okay.
So yeah, no, he's one of the few non-bandwagon Buck fans.
He's legit. I've seen pictures of Tiny Nick in a Keyshawn Johnson jersey.
Yeah.
So for the Al Scott jersey.
Oh yeah.
So you
Warren
said
said.
Tampa on that, right?
No, I'm saying Dallas. I'm saying Dallas.
Okay. Sorry.
I think Dallas because I think H has finally caught up with Brady. But of course, me saying that, it means that Brady is going to be somehow Lazarus pitted back into prominence, and he'll probably end up winning. But my logic is going with Dallas.
Fair enough. Ob?
So I am going to agree with your outcome, but disagree with the reality of the game. The reality of the game is Brady's going to play like he's however old he truly is. And yet Prescott and the Cowboys and the coaching staff over there are going to play like garbage. There's going to be a time management issue at the end of the game. And Brady's going to have one drive. And we are all going to talk on Talk Sports where we are about the resurrection of Tom Brady, who's going to have 180 passing yards, 80 of it on a 1 fourth quarter drive in the final 2 minutes, how he's come back. So no, he isn't really going to be back, but he is going to beat the Cowboys. That is my prediction.
All right. JD?
Obi just said exactly what I was thinking. That it won't be so much Voldemort winning as it will be Dallas losing, because Dallas is Cowboys gonna Cowboy. That's just, and Dak gonna Dak. That's just, I just don't see.
Straight up Bloody Mary. Yeah.
Okay. So you're saying formally Tampa? I'm sorry, I missed that when I was reading that comment.
Yeah,
Why do you think his skin's so smooth?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I was going to say, in my case, I have to go Tampa in this case. The problem, one of the things that you guys haven't quite mentioned just yet is the fact that the Cowboys have psychologically struggled for the last almost 30 years since that last Super Bowl appearance. I think they have had since 2000, 3 playoff wins. They're like 3-10 or 3-11 during the playoff run.
Yeah,
so
Tony has 2 wins and Dak has 1.
Okay, so yeah, they got 3 wins in 20 plus years here. So as a result, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to go into Tampa Bay. You're going to have to face Tom Brady, who at this point, yes, he is not what he used to be, but dear God in heaven, he knows what to do and when to do it. So as a result, a guy like that, I think is going to turn it on at the right time. And as a result, Tampa is the team that I think is going to win this. I think the Cowboys are going to have a very disappointing season in here. I think the guy that I've been talking about in this case, we're going to talk about Sheldon. He is probably going to want to jump off a cliff. He's probably going to post things on Facebook talking about basically don't talk to me for the next 6 weeks, because he is as hardcore a Cowboys fan and predicts 17-0 every single season, sweeping all the way through, shutouts on every single game, and then basically contemplates suicide when the team inevitably fails. Sorry, Sheldon. It's going to be your time again in there. Brandon, real quick first. So.
Yeah, I don't see Dallas and Dak immediately fixing their issues over the course of a week. Going on the road to Tom, just the narrative and the situation, the setup of it, I think really holds weight. So I'm going to go Tampa. I think it'll still be close. I don't think both teams will look really great for the most part. We'll get maybe some fourth quarter sparks. I'm sure Tom will do his usual 2-minute drive BS where, they score some measly touchdown and they win by 2. And we get to hear the glory that is the immortal Tom.
Yep.
Yeah, Tampa.
So I would like to give
I'm
one
totally
piece of
borrowing
statistical.
I'm totally borrowing that blood of the practice squad players line for sure.
So I would like to give one piece of statistical evidence for the victory here of the Tampa Bay Bucks. So I mean, because you think you'd look at the numbers other than game 1 of the season, you're going to say Cowboys. Cowboys have the best record of any team in the playoffs against teams with a winning record. They're 5-1. The one loss was to my Eagles when they didn't even have Dak playing. But that means that the rest of their record.
He wasn't throwing interceptions and pick sixes.
Mm-hmm.
But that means their record's 7-6 against non-winning teams, which, as we discussed for half an hour to start the show, Tampa Bay doesn't have. Like, I'd feel more confident if I'm a Cowboy fan against any of the other teams in the playoffs, by the way. I think we all alluded to that because Scott is right. Scott is right.
Over here.
There's a mental thing going on with the Cowboys. And the only thing that Tom Brady has left, I think, in the tank is that Tiger Woods intimidation that causes other quarterbacks to just fold. Because that's what we almost saw happen against LA last year. And Stafford, for all I might think he's just a slightly better than average quarterback, not quite in the Hall of Fame class, he kept his head against the Tom Brady comeback, which Matty Ice never did, and many other quarterbacks never did. So I think that's an important factor in here. Is that
Poor Matt Ryan.
Like you said, Scott, there's the history of both the Cowboys flubbing in the playoffs with teams that I think were better than this, like that Terrell Owens team that they had. That team was a great team, and they flubbed. So, yeah, sorry to steal the spotlight back. Let's move on to the next subject.
It's okay. So that question right there, I mean, as far as like who's the most overrated and underrated, I think overrated in this case, I have to go with with Minnesota on something like this. I think this is a team that 13-4, they cruised all the way through, but they are not a 13-4 team. They are more of an 11-6 kind of a team. And I would not give that team a lot of odds. I mean, listen, by and large, most of us actually took the Giants, the underdog, blue collar, low end, Jersey trash that we are, Jersey proud here, Giants to pull off the upset here. And it makes a lot of sense. So I think Minnesota is probably, in my pick, the most overrated of the bunch.
Okay.
I would say people think about Minnesota as the way you do, Scott. So I don't. I feel like they're statistically better than they are by their record, but I think most people feel that there's a smoke and mirrors thing, as shown by all of us selecting the Giants. So I think the most overrated team in the playoff is probably actually my Eagles, because I think people think they have an MVP quality quarterback. The only games they lost, he wasn't playing. But as a fan, I've seen them struggle.
That's going to be an impassioned Lincoln Financial Field, though.
I think. Look, I still think they're going to win. I think this is a Super Bowl bound team. But I think people think they are 2 steps above the 49ers and 2 steps above the Cowboys when the Cowboys are firing, and they're only 1 or even only a half a step. That's why I think they're the most overrated. Although I still think they are the best team, if that makes any sense.
Fair. Listen, it's not about the number 1 seed. It's about being smart and getting hot at the right time. So,
yeah,
absolutely. Overrated, I'm going to go with, it's kind of hard to do overrated and underrated when you got a couple quarterbacks that are completely out of it right now with like the Ravens and Miami. But honestly, without Jackson, Baltimore's not a playoff team.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give Baltimore my overrated.
And that's marking. Also Gimpy. Even a Gimpy Jackson is not a Jackson.
Exactly. So it's it's like, well, some people could say that, oh, like even myself was saying, if Jackson's back, it could be a close game. But you know what? I think Baltimore's overrated in this one. Underrated, Seattle. Seattle is a scary team, as is Jacksonville. But Jacksonville, because they're on such a hot streak, I can't put them as underrated. So Seattle has had its up and downs this season, and complete kudos to them for getting rid of Russell Wilson when they did.
Wow.
But, my gosh. But
and getting the draft picks in the process.
Oh, that's one of those. That is one of those preseason moves that is going to go down as one of the best moves a team has ever made. And if they do make a run in the playoffs, that will absolutely be a key to it.
I don't want to bring Mike Houston back for that one, by the way.
Oh, you can get Zach Wilson, but no. So underrated. I'm going to go Seattle.
Okay. Anybody else?
Go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, overrated. I'm gonna say Minnesota. But if I had to pick a second one, I really might pick Dallas. with all their struggles and things considered, again, expectations and everything. I just think they are in trouble too. Underrated. I'm gonna go Jacksonville. I like the Seattle and Jacksonville as the two, but if I had to pick one, I would go Jacksonville. I think we only because there had been a lot, almost talk of like Geno being MVP candidate, like Seattle even, kind of winning the division over the course of the year. That was until San Francisco got their shit together. But Jacksonville kind of this, later third of the season, stuff like that really started to click. Trevor Lawrence, for those who haven't been paying attention, I would say this year was a borderline top 5 quarterback, all things considered. And I think going into the playoffs, I don't know. Let's see. Maybe they can do something. So I'm going to say Jacksonville is underrated.
So anybody else?
So I'll just jump on my underrated, then we'll give it to JD because he's got a lot. I know. I think, again, sticking with number 1 seeds, I can't believe how quiet all the talk has been about Kansas City all season. Like, this is still Patty Mahomes.
You know what you're getting from that team, though, with or without Tyreek Hill.
Right. So it's kind of like LeBron in the NBA. We've stopped giving them MVPs because we're like, they're doing what they're supposed to. But what they're supposed to is darn impressive. They're the number 1 seed. He's throwing touchdowns to Kelsey, making Gronk look like, comparable to Gronk in ways. I mean, it's without Hill. I mean, I'm just shocked of the overall lack of conversation around Kansas City's greatness. So again, I'm going to give them the underrated. Now, remember, I've taken Cincinnati over them, but I just feel like the conversation around Kansas City after last year's season, even though I think they're better than last year, it's just like, we're on to something new. We want a new flavor. So I think they're the most underrated. And I know that JD's got some thoughts on another subject for us. So JD, take it away.
Yeah. Just real quick. For all the points already mentioned, I'll go with Minnesota and Dallas tied as my most overrated, and Jacksonville as underrated. One quick Kansas City thing. Did you see, Obi? Did you see that spinning huddle thing that they did yesterday?
Yes. And then they got the holding penalty.
Yeah, but so. Next up, we have Seton Hall Butler, and Scott also got his first college basketball experience out of this game. And it was a must-win for Seton Hall, especially coming off of just getting absolutely demolished in Omaha by Creighton, and the CHI Health Center in Omaha is one of the tougher places to play in the country, and just they're a different team without Kalkbrenner, and Seton Hall's still trying to figure out what they are. I mean, they've been shorthanded with injuries for much of the offseason, new coach, a lot of new players. They're kind of still trying to figure it out a little bit, but they figured it out against Butler, where they were hitting Tyrese Samuel inside early and often. He had the first 7 points and 9 of the first 11. And then Kadari Richmond was feeding him, and they played so well that he was just short of a triple-double in only 30 minutes because he didn't play the last 10 minutes because it was a blowout. His Richmond's line was, let's see, it was 11 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds. Coach Holloway did say after the game, yeah, that's on me. I know that individual milestones are important. Now, I would have tried to put him back in, but also you don't want to risk injury in garbage time. So so he acknowledged both sides of that. And it's Butler is not looking too great so far. They have a new coach too, bringing back Thad Matta, and they're really what the Hall needs to do is they try and figure things out. I mean, they've had 2 blowout wins against St. John's and Butler, and they've also struggled with they struggle with Marquette and Creighton, but they came up just short against Xavier and Providence. So not really sure what they are, but as long as they beat up the bottom feeders, which I classify the bottom feeders of the Big East this year in descending order as Butler, St. John's, DePaul, and way down in the dumps you have Georgetown, who has lost 26 consecutive Big East regular season games going back to March 2001. That is insane. And if it was any other program, any other coach, then they would have been fired.
I don't mean to kill him, but his job.
You can't. It's like you can't. You can't fire Patrick Ewing if you're Georgetown.
Yeah.
I think that ultimately,
Close.
and now Seton Hall plays Georgetown tomorrow, and they struggled in all 3 times that they played Georgetown last year. While they did win all 3 games, including the Big East first round game, they were all ugly, and just the pressure of not wanting to be the team. Nobody wants to be the team that breaks that streak, and Georgetown gets their first win. So the Hall has struggled with Georgetown recently. I'm expecting another rock fight of a game, but I think that with the talent disparity and hopefully coming off some momentum from Butler, that's it. And they also have a second road game right after that. They should not be looking ahead to DePaul or any team, and I don't think they are. When they were asked it, when any of the reporters asked both the players and Holloway after the game, they said, we're not looking forward to anything. One game, some variation of one game at a time.
Sure.
Speak. So, it won't be pretty, but Seton Hall should win that. And Seton Hall usually struggles playing in Chicago. You would think that Seton Hall usually just has issues in the Midwest, anywhere except Cincinnati. Just these Midwest road trips are not.
Is it the travel part of it?
What's that?
Do you think it's the travel part of it?
Travel is I think part of it, and also those are, especially Creighton and Marquette. Those are very tough road environments to play in. Cincinnati is a weird one where it's. With this year being the first time that Xavier's actually beaten Seton Hall at Cintas Center in about 4 years, where Xavier beats everybody else at home except for Seton Hall. But even that, they're an 18th in the country, at least before the previous rankings. They may have moved up. I haven't seen today's rankings, but they've always struggled with Seton Hall. Xavier's 12th now. I saw they were 18th before beating Villanova the other day. And I don't know what to make of Villanova either. And I don't think they do. With their injuries and new coach, they're kind of in a similar situation to Seton Hall. They just have more talent on paper. So it's always a blast when those teams play. But Seton Hall now sits at 2-4 in the Big East. You win these 2, you get to 4-4, and then you come home for 2 tough games at home next week with UConn and Marquette. If you can split those, get to 5-5, and go from there. But this is, and there have been some good wins where they beat Seton Hall or they beat Rutgers in the RAC in one of the biggest rock fight games I've ever seen, 45-43. But they also lost to Seattle. It's been tough for them to try and get it together. So we will see where we go for the rest of this year. Another underrated thing from the other day was Trey Jackson finally finding his stroke, where he's really struggled on the offensive end, and his defense is not. He's asked to play out of position because Seton Hall has a real thin front court. With Lexus Yetna, who's missed the entire season so far with injury, and doesn't sound like he might come back, he might not, who knows. So against bigger teams, they usually struggle. So it was great to see Trey Jackson break out of his slump, at least for one game. It was great to see Kaderi Richmond. Remember, he's a point guard again, and both scoring and with the assists. He was so close to a triple double, and Coach Holloway had a fantastic reply when somebody said no Seton Hall players ever had a triple double in a Big East game. Holloway's response was, "I thought I had one, but I guess not."
That's
You got to put those news people. You got to put those journalists.
And Scott, that was your first college basketball game.
It actually was, believe it or not. It kind of makes me feel like a noob a little bit that way, though. So,
that's the glory about
hardly
the
my
Big
first time at the Rock, but yeah, for Seton Hall, it was nice. So, it is arguably to me the closest thing that you're going to get to, like, I'm going to call it football, but European football. The energy, the vibe, the impassioned side of it. You don't get that from the NFL. You don't get that from baseball or even NBA, I think. But from a college standpoint, you do get that kind of unity towards the team, and that's something that is what part of the reason what appeals so much when it comes to college basketball is the fact that there is such a unity there, not just from the alumni, but from the local ones. And I think we talked about this, you and I, the next day. It's I knew them when they go on to bigger and better and land the NBA career, you're like, I remember when that kid was a freshman at 18 years old. So there's a little bit of that, I think, going on as well.
Yeah. And also, especially the smaller school like Seton Hall, like you actually are seeing them didn't you, if I know, I don't want to say specifically, but I think your wife went to, let's say, a big time football school at the time that a very prominent, and at the same time that a prominent NFL player was there. But
yes, it has two names by it. One is a state, and then the other one ends with Tech. So I won't mention Virginia Tech by name. We'll leave that out of there. No, dude, it's fine. We can talk about that. But she went to VT on that one back during the Michael Vick era. When he was the starting quarterback there, and before his rise, his fall, his rise again. So and that's, like I said, that college unity. That's why they always talk about school spirit. And even in high school, you talk about most school spirit, because in this case, high school and college is in a lot of ways the new future. I think, because hell, high school football is on national TV now. That used to be something that only high school sports only used to actually. I remember in Japan back in the 90s, they used to have like high school baseball on national television, and I thought that was one of the dumbest things ever. But now I'm seeing it here, and I'm like, you know what? I was dead wrong all those years.
I've been part of because I went to a high school with a at the time a nationally ranked basketball team. We actually played in the same showcase event in Trenton right after the LeBron Carmelo game. They looked like NBA players then, and although it is strange seeing the 2/3 of the arena get up and leave before your game starts, and as far as the college basketball environment, if we can get into a game at the Rack, then that'll really blow your socks off. That place is insane. I call
the
it
Rack, not the Rock.
The trapezoid of terror.
But it's like I was mentioning, Big East basketball is, in my opinion, the best college basketball conference, because each of those teams, it's an absolute meat grinder, as I mentioned in the comments. It's like each team has a solid chance of beating the other, regardless of where they are in the standings. And going on Georgetown, the longer that streak goes, the more pressure it is. The more pressure is on the opposing team to not screw up. And while it sometimes might just end up being a complete destruction and blowout, other times it gets really, really close. It's like the 16 team versus the number 1 seed. It should be a walkover, but it isn't.
Anything can happen in a one game,
exactly.
Elimination.
Exactly. And the Big East is known for being an absolute meat grinder. Every team will play each other incredibly hard. Even playing down to the competition. When during Nova's mid 2000s run, they weren't really that known of a team. They had a great lineup, but the thing is, they kept playing up to their competition. So
And that was before Nova was Nova as far as national.
Yeah, it was with like it was
even
with
back then you struggled to get tickets for games in the pavilion.
Yeah, it was when Lowry was playing, Alan Ray was playing, you had Sumter. Yeah, you had a lot of decent players. Dante Cunningham was there too.
Mhm.
And as I mentioned in the comments, I had a class with Kyle Lowry. So it's like yeah. So it's
Nice.
like the Big East is it's like
it's
it's
like
like
he was at Georgia Tech with Calvin Johnson.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. As we saw in the comments too. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's went
That's
to
pretty badass.
GT with Calvin Johnson. That's awesome. But it's like no offense to the ACC, the big the A12 or whatever. It's like Big East puts on better games. Yeah, you might have like some of those legendary teams coming out of the other conferences, but it's usually one, maybe two teams just run away with that entire division every year.
Mhm.
Big East, it's a slugfest for all the teams throughout the entire season. Seton Hall, Nova, Georgetown, now UConn's back. UConn's still ranked number 6, and they're 4-2 in the Big East.
I have UConn winning it all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they lost twice already in the Big East. The 2 undefeated teams are the number 19 Friars and the 12 Musketeers. Marquette's 5-1. So yeah, the top 4 are all ranked, but you can't count any of those teams out.
Seton Hall almost beat Providence in their Big East opener.
Oh,
And
Big East,
UConn
best team.
is a team where they could win a national championship or they could lose in their first round because they have lost in the first round the last 2 years.
That's the Big East.
So just it could go either way. And even with the bad teams, even with Georgetown and DePaul, I mean, Seton Hall's had issues with as I mentioned before, they've had issues with DePaul for years.
Mhm.
Just there are no easy marks in this conference, not even Georgetown.
But that's what happens when you have a conference that's built on basketball.
Mhm.
You get good basketball games.
Fair. All right, gents. So, anything? I don't know where. Oh yeah, I got nothing to follow up on. So, anything else?
I believe there's that little kerfuffle going on with U.S. soccer right now.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Oof,
There's a little hullabaloo going on down there.
Yeah.
With the coach with the coach and whatnot. So
I'll let you guys roll with that one.
Yeah, I'll pass. I'll pass with the ugliness there.
Yeah, that's
this is a nasty one. This everybody looks bad here.
yes.
The Reynas and the Berhalters just nuked a decades-long friendship over an issue with their kids' playing time,
Mhm.
and I'm not saying that or trying to discredit any allegations or anything, but the biggest part of that, whatever happened, that is Rosalind Berhalter's story to tell, not
Absolutely.
Danielle Reyna's.
Absolutely.
And I think that the only way out of this for U.S. soccer is to cut ties with everybody.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Berhalter is technically out of contract, so they don't even need to fire him. They just don't rehire him. But I also think that Gio Reyna should be cut from the national team, especially if the allegations of whatever he did that was so bad that Berhalter almost sent him home from Qatar.
Mhm.
This is ugly, and this has all of the high school soccer mom drama built on an international stage. And
My fuel and my belief that Sean Johnson will be the head coach for in 2026.
You mean
I
it's
saw
not
an
going to be
article-
Zidane?
Was that?
I
It's not gonna be
saw an
Zidane?
article earlier today that does not turn him down.
Yeah,
I saw an article earlier today that clearly U.S. soccer is, looking to move on because they allegedly, it hasn't been confirmed, offered the national team job to Zinedine Zidane, who, after getting canned at Real Madrid, I believe, isn't coaching anywhere right now. But he's holding out for the France job. But he'll be holding out for a while since they just extended Deschamps through the 26 World Cup.
Indeed.
I've heard Ted Lasso may be available though.
Thank God.
It's honestly a real darn shame about all that's going on with Berhalter versus Reina. It's like, what happened this year for Reina stinks, and he didn't get playtime. But when your parents act like little league parents about their coach not playing their kid enough, the thing is, Reina's young enough that he's going to be back for multiple. He would be back for multiple World Cups, and his parents essentially burned his bridge for him. And it's
welcome
just
to the future. This is not the last of something like this. I promise you that.
It's not the first.
But I'm saying as parenting styles have changed, I'm being very delicate here. I think this is going to become, in some ways, maybe the new normal. How many little league signs do you end up seeing saying, be a responsible parent. Don't shoot. Your kid is not the MVP. He's not going to get this. This kind of stuff I think may become more commonplace. And this may set an example.
I don't know. I think that as somebody who coached little league, multiple sports, I found a huge difference in a positive way from when I was playing little league sports. And I would say the biggest difference is because of travel teams and whatever AAU teams, you start on your local club teams, and instead of the best kid's father being the coach, and then 2 or 3 other really good kids fighting to get in, and then the bad kids just having miserable times, the bad kid's father coaches. All right. My kid was bad. I was bad. And so I'm still trying to win there, but I'm very cognizant of the bad kids being able to make sure they get playing time. And the good kids' parents, when they're on those club teams, they're like, all right, this is the chance for my kid to see how to be a good teammate with dad. Like, they realize the opportunity those kids have. Now, what goes on in the AAU world and those travel team worlds, that's a different animal. But you're also paying a lot of money to be involved in those leagues. So I think that some of it is different and some of it's the same. If you ever want to have a great conversation about this, my podcast partner, a little self-promotion here, Ed, his daughters highly are involved in sports. She's going to the D3 play basketball. So he told me a lot about this and the intricacies of club versus AAU and travel and just how parents are the same and how parents are different. Because he too was a kid who played but was not great. And like Scott, who I know, me and Scott were playing right field, platooning with each other.
Platoon right field and drank the Gatorade when we're sitting on the bench.
Right.
I know how that feels. Well, I didn't play
league in strikeouts 2 out of my 3 years.
I didn't play on any travel teams because I wasn't good enough, but my brother did. So it's funny is I'm like the only person in my extended family that didn't play on a travel team or a varsity sport. So it's like I've seen the craziness that can go on, just the drama that parents can cause if their kid who legitimately is better than your average kid, no doubt, just to get on the team, when you're basically now you're basically a big fish in a big pond now, and your kid, while maybe very above average, may just be average in comparison to the rest of the team. So it's crazy the amount of drama that can happen. And while my brother was one of the better players, he might not have. He probably wasn't the best. He certainly tried. He tried his darndest. And it's ridiculous. And it's just crazy the drama that parents can cause. And
that's why I think this is going to become a new normal. I really do.
The other part. Oh, there goes John again. The other part is blank screen. Hi, John. But
Yeah.
but going on that, like, while my brother was good, I was not. But my dad coached both levels of team. Like he was a coach on the teams I played for, and I certainly wasn't the best at baseball, even though decent hitter, can't run for crap. And that kind of stands out. So it's while like I said, my brother, when he played, my dad was a coach for that too. And he was one of the better players. So it's like I got to see both worlds.
Yeah,
and just
my dad was an umpire because he didn't want to deal with coaching, and that was
He just gets hated on all sides.
Did he
right? So he just instead he just got everybody's crap.
How many times did he call strikes on you that weren't?
Oh,
All the time.
He well, I mean, he wasn't supposed to umpire my games, but it would occasionally, there was once or twice where it happened because they were shorthanded or something, and he rang me up twice, but also I stunk and I deserved, and it was I had more hit by pitches than I had hits in the average season.
Well, I remember in our little league, the older brothers actually would sometimes umpire the younger brother's name. Obi, I'll just say the last name Sansone. You'll know that name. And I remember there was a ball that literally bounced off the plate, and the older brother called it a strike because his younger brother was on the mound. Bounced straight off the plate. He's like, strike.
Oh, the look must have been fantastic.
Oh, dude.
A funny umpiring story that my dad had, where he saw where he was one of the base umpires in this game. I think he was first base or third base. And the catcher that was playing for one of the teams, because there was an injury or something, he really didn't know how to catch. So he would catch every pitch off of a rebound off of the umpire's chest protector. and eventually all the umpires are just like went to the coach and was just like, you can't do this. If you do that one more time, I'm throwing you out of the game. And then his coach took him out.
Well, like I said, I was very proud of the fact that I led the league in strikeouts and walks 2 of my 3 seasons there, because I was just terrible, to the point that my own teammates would make fun of me because how bad I was, But yeah, that's okay. I remember actually I was sitting there, in practice once in third base, and everybody's trying out, they're being serious and all this kind of stuff, and I'm sitting there and I'm trying to dig the ball into the dirt as much as possible just to try and bury the ball during practice. The manager actually took the ball out, rubbed it on my jersey, and kind of taught me a lesson there. I had no talent whatsoever. I was terrible, hilariously terrible. So
I could hit.
That's why that South Park episode of The Losing Edge, where they just want to lose and just go on with their summer.
I did learn how to steal.
I
learned how to steal signs from from a few opposing coaches who I played for before. That was my biggest contribution to a team. Although I did have a game tying clutch hit in a league championship game. We lost.
I had a game winning hit by pitch in a
Nice.
against the undefeated team. So that was
Nice.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember our sign for bunt was this. Our sign for hit was this.
I always ignored it when my coach called for a bunt, and I got benched very quickly because I was terrible at bunting. I was better. Yeah, exactly, because I couldn't run. It was much better because my hits usually plopped it over the shortstop's head. So it's like yeah, I hit a billion singles, but most of them were singles because that's the base that I could run for before I got winded. But I had 3 moments. I had a ground ball grand slam. I got hit by a pitch 3 times in one at bat because the ump didn't call the first 2. 3 straight pitches hits me 3 times because the ump is an idiot. Because the ump was an idiot that game. Straight. I'm not mincing words on that.
Was it my dad or JD's?
I would have walked to first base, bro.
I was going to, and the ump kept telling me to get back in the box. Like, it hit me in the foot. The ball ricocheted at a 45-degree angle. It's like, no, it hit the dirt first. No, it didn't.
My foot's swelling up. Do you see what it looks like?
It's like I can't run anyway. Now you want me to limp. But no, it's and the third one is I got knocked out on a pick-off play to second base when I was the one catching the ball. It tipped off the top of my glove, hit me square in the face, and when I came to, my grandma was standing over me.
Hey, at least you got to play the infield.
Apparently, my grandma jumped the fence when that happened.
I believe it. Okay, fair.
Yeah,
Respect.
I got one in the chin during a game. It was the first year I was playing, so the easy way is to pitch me inside because I would freak out a little bit. Anything that looked like it was going inside, nope. My mom almost climbed the fence, but I think they stopped
Okay.
her.
Brandon, did you
No one
play
was
Little
stopping
League?
my
Please
grandma.
tell me you at least didn't suck.
No, I would say I was just a solid middle of the pack.
Okay.
I'm at least confident enough to be above average, or better than above or below average, but not really, turning
Okay.
any heads. So middle
You
of the
weren't
pack.
shit like we were.
I had my moments, yeah. Between Little League baseball and basketball, yeah, I had my moments.
At least one- at
I
least one
wrestled. I had good moments there, but not in baseball.
You did. That is true. So,
Get me in softball. I'll be one
That
of the
was
better
why I
hitters.
became a manager.
I'm great at listen, dude. I'm great at basketball. So,
There you go.
yes,
Oh man,
yeah.
Get me in volleyball and softball.
right.
I'll actually be one of the better players.
they should have basketball as a intramural sport.
Dude, basketball's
Yes.
starting to come
Yeah.
back now.
Hmm.
It's starting to become a thing because it's so low key, so laid back, and just like the movie said, guys with bad knees can do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it made headway. It was actually really a thing out in California. That's how they got the idea
Ice
to do the
Cube.
movie.
Instead of that big three, you need a basketball tournament, man. You need a basketball league.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is one. We should look into that.
Speaking of
If we
water,
had the
start
ESPN,
our
we'd
own.
win baseball. Mhm.
We'll be on
It's
the
the
Ocho.
25-year anniversary of that movie this year too.
And then we could do fantasy sports for it.
Oh God, yeah. Is there bettability on basketball?
Yes.
Playability, watchability.
Yes, there
There's
is.
bettability on most things. You know, we
as long as they don't cancel a game with my two best players going. But
You
No,
still
it's like
came
one
in
of those
second place,
things.
though. You still
that
came in second place, though. To be fair,
I did.
And their
Yeah,
official
we-
sponsor has to be Lazy Boy.
yes, or Barca Lounger if you have to.
Some form of beer.
So, all right, gents, we may as well wrap this up at this point. Thanks as always. I appreciate it. Brandon, appreciate you. JD, appreciate you. Kyle, appreciate you. Obi, appreciate you. We'll see if our predictions actually for for the wild card round actually hold water, or you can sit there and make fun of us for being dead wrong in pretty much every possible way. Otherwise, thanks as always. Tune in. Go Giants, please. We need. It is the first play. It's one playoff game for that entire team in the last 10 years. Did an article. The PR people at the Giants now apparently have the article. So let's see what happens there. But anyway, thanks as always. Appreciate you. Take care.